Welcome to Lynn's Romance Library. Today I have a fake dating recommendation collab. So thank you so much to B from Mama Needs to Read Romance for organizing this collaboration. There's going to be a lot of really good recommendations. So please feel free to check out the description box if you've read a bunch of mine or you're looking for some more people and content creators that love the fake dating trope. So I am really excited to share some of my favorites. I've kind of distribute this across a couple different genres that I read in so that hopefully you can kind of get a little bit of an idea if you haven't been here before of what kind of books I enjoy and read and what kind of stories really intrigue me with specifically the fake dating trope in mind. So a large percentage of my reading personally occurs within the paranormal fantasy realm, leaning more paranormal. So we're going to talk about a couple paranormal ones first. So the first one I have up is The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. This is a traditionally published paranormal romance. So just keep in mind that this is traditionally published. So it does have a slightly different vibe than indie paranormal books. But this is loosely an Omegaverse story. Our heroine is an Omega and she works as a nurse at emergency room hospital. And then our hero is a doctor and he is an alpha, and there's a lot of prejudice against alphas, and it comes out that he is an alpha. And so he needs to show that he is stable. And so they come up with a fake dating / fake mating arrangement where they start hanging out and getting to know one another, and it goes from there. So it is set in a medical setting. It is a more urban real life setting for a paranormal romance, but it has incorporated this Omega world, Omegaverse and Wolf Shifter style story. This is MF, unlike some Omegaverse, so keep that in mind. The next one I have is Tempting Auzed from Victoria Aveline's Clickania series. This is book 3, and you can't jump into book 3, but hopefully what I say will intrigue you into the story and pick up this series. So the first book is Choosing Theo. The premise of this world is that human women have been kidnapped and transported to this planet Clickania that has different regions and areas and races in it. But the Clickanians had a disease that took out a large percentage of their female population. Because of that, we have developed a highly female-based society where females are in power, and there is a high emphasis on breeding and reproduction. And so in order to promote that, they introduce marriages, which aren't our term of marriages. It's more like a kind of like a trial of their relationship. And so you get paired for 3 months. During that time period, the male does a lot of service towards the female, trying to woo her. And there is a large focus on trying to see if that pairing will produce children. And so our female in the first book has been kidnapped and escapes before she gets put into captivity for an unknown purpose. And when she comes into the society, is forced to go into this marriage situation, which is almost a marriage of convenience, which is fake dating adjacent. But in book 3, our heroine has been freed from this facility and she doesn't trust anything. And so she runs into the woods and is living off of the land. Her parents and family were survivalists, so she kind of knows how to survive in the wilderness. And so she's on her own when one day a dude falls out of the sky and that is severely injured. This is our hero, Auzed, and they end up being together and surviving off of the woods. I'm not going to spoil how they end up in a fake dating situation. but they basically pretend to be fated mates and pairing in order to evade a legal snafu that they are in from living off the land during that time. And so they eventually get reintegrated into society, and that's where they have to have this fake relationship. So highly recommend that series. I am in the middle of a moseying reread of that story. So feel free to pick that up. I highly recommend the series. They're very entertaining. My favorite is currently Choosing Thea, which is book 1, and then Using Feiho. So I really enjoy both of those series, but the entire series is knockout, standout series. Next up, I have A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. So fake dating a demon. So this is another traditionally published fake dating. Our heroine is a witch that has pretty strong nature magic and is supposed to be very powerful. And her mother had seen a prophecy that she was going to be a very powerful witch. But nature magic isn't very sexy. And so her family is always pressuring her to develop a snazzy type of magic that is more tempting. And so she's constantly trying to develop that special magic, this one that will make her family proud of her. And so in doing that and trying to practice for that, she accidentally summons a demon. And she's like, yeah, I know how this goes. I'm not going to sell my soul to a demon. Right? Yeah, definitely a smart choice. Don't sell your soul to a demon. But she has to justify why this demon is following her around, because until a deal has been sealed between them, he can't go anywhere. And he is physically in proximity because he can't go a certain distance away from her. And so she comes up with the ruse that they are dating. And so she makes him wear a slouchy beanie to hide his horns. And then they also have a magical mystery of something destroying the forest and town that she is trying to fight because she is so nature magic focused. And so it's a really fun time. I have not moved on in the series, but I plan to. Again, it's traditionally published paranormal, so keep that in mind. It's a little fluffy. It's a little... My dog just barked. Thank you, Oliver. So it is a little bit fluffy. It leans more contemporary than a true paranormal that you would get from an indie romance, or leaning to fantasy. So it's always a good paranormal palette cleanser for me. Okay. Similarly, we have Not the Witch You Wed by April Asher. This is a story about a girl that has a family that's very involved in supernatural politics. And her mom really wants her to get into this relationship or marriage for political reasons. And they are at the engagement party for her older sister that is or I think it's the younger sister, can't quite remember, that is going to be in a kind of arranged marriage for power reasons. And while there, she quite literally runs into a old friend / crush that she had a big falling out with. She tries to go skiing, and she's trying to avoid something. And so she goes just on any lift that she can. And she's at the top of this mountain that's like a blue or a black slope that she quite literally can't ski down. And so she just starts barreling down the mountain, can't stop. And she runs into the hero of our story. And they've obviously known each other from the past. And it kind of ignites this spark between them. But the family she's reluctant because he kind of broke her heart. And so it kind of goes from there. The mom that's meddling ends up trying to see what's going on. And so they agreed to a fake dating arrangement. So that one's also pretty fun. And the last in the kind of paranormal realm is Feral Sins by Suzanne Wright. This is a more indie style paranormal. It's a little grittier than some of the other ones that we've talked about, but it is really enjoyable. In this, our heroine is the daughter of the alpha, and she is going to be put into an arranged marriage with an alpha from a different pack that is quite atrocious. And she's tried to raise flags before and talk to people about how she doesn't feel comfortable with this guy, and no one's really listening to her and is belittling her. This is kind of a society that minimizes female roles, so just keep that in mind. But she ends up, there's this other alpha that sees kind of the situation brewing and wants to get revenge against her father, and is kind of curious about a couple of things. And so he kidnaps her. And after he's kidnapped her, he tries to convince her that they should be fake dating or a fake mate, because true mates are the only thing that could supersede this arranged marriage / arranged mating that her father's trying to put forth. And so then they try and they arrange a love at first sight meeting at a bar, which then kind of begins a courtship. And very shortly after that, her father ends up basically disregarding that interaction, and she has to leave the pack in peril. And so it starts this very interesting kind of fake dating / fake mating relationship, but there's also a lot of political machinations in the background. So this is definitely a little bit darker, a little bit, there's definitely people and dynamics that are a little less female friendly. So it does tend to be a little sexist and misogynistic, but it is still a really good story. Our hero and the main characters aren't that way at all, but it is a very interesting story. So that is it for the paranormal. This is the bulk of my reading, so I hope you found some of those. Now we're going to go into some of the other ones. So I do read a ton of historicals, but specifically fake dating isn't super common. Obviously, marriage of conveniences are much more common, but I didn't see one that jumped out when I was planning this video. But we do have When a Scot Ties the Knot by Tessa, which is more of a fake dating than a marriage of convenience. So in this, our heroine is out in society, but she doesn't really like society, and she doesn't want to find anyone to like court, or she's just like really over it. She kind of wants to like hide in the back. She does scientific drawings as a hobby, and so she's really weird and quirky and really just wants to like live her spinster life. And so she makes up a beau, and so she makes up Captain Mackenzie of whatever battalion that she met in this whirlwind summer holiday. And so she's like, I've promised myself to him, we're engaged. And then over the years past, she does fake correspondence with him and stuff. And so over time, years pass, and she's like, okay, I think I'm in a good spot. I'm going to kill him off. And so it's like this tragic ending. He's died in war. I'm heartbroken. I'm in mourning. And then like 2 weeks later, Captain Mackenzie comes up to her doorstep and is like, so, hi. And it's a very interesting story because they're put into this fake dating situation where his battalion has really found this relationship between their captain and our heroine to be such a captivating romance, and it's caused them to have a lot of hope on the battlefield and kind of get them out of situations that they might not have otherwise gotten out of. And so this is kind of like they've made it through, the war is over, and now it's time to get their happy endings. Even though they've been through war, there's a lot of PTSD. There is one of the guys, I'm pretty sure, got significant brain damage, and so he has short-term memory loss, so he doesn't remember where he is a lot of times. And so you have this group of men that have been at war, that have been through a lot, and our captain is just trying to give them hope and his relationship with the heroine does that, and eventually they fall in love. And so that one's really fun and unique and original. And there is a little bit of class difference as well, because she is from the Ton Society. I forget what her rank is, but he was just a self-made man who enlisted in the army and climbed through the ranks. So it's a really beautiful story. I love Tessa Dare, so please check that one out. So now are some more contemporary stories. Some of these I've read a little bit further or less recently, so I might not remember as much. So the first one is a traditionally published contemporary called Accidentally Engaged by Farah Heron. This is also BIPOC. Our author and the characters are of Indian descent, but it is set in Canadian. So our heroine and hero are both second generation Canadian. So in this, it focuses largely on kind of a more Indian culture, which I appreciated. I was kind of involved with an Indian community in college. My roommate was Indian. I did Bollywood dance. Fun facts about Lynn. So in this, our heroine is on the older side. Her parents are getting kind of fussy with her for not having found a match, and so they're starting to pressure her into a more arranged situationship, which is still fairly common within the Indian community. Not super common, but still pretty common. And so she ends up meeting on her doorstep. Well, and there's this new guy that moves in across the hall from her in her apartment complex that is a kind of fun, interesting guy. They get along pretty good, but she's trying to enter this baking competition that's kind of a cooking show, but it's predicated on couples or pairings. And so she enrolls this neighbor across the hall to pretend to be her fiance for the sake of this video competition or this baking competition. And so as they progress through it, their feelings develop. It was a really fun, interesting story. I really appreciated the references to Indian culture because it felt very authentic to me. Clearly, I cannot speak on the representation super well because I am not Indian, but from my involvement within the community from college, it seemed to be very accurate and fun, and I really appreciate it. I highly recommend this story, especially if you're a foodie. She gets into cooking sourdough, and so she has this sourdough starter, and at one point, the hero is watching her starter while she's like out of town, and he can't bear to throw out the excess starter, and so he starts propagating all these new jars of starter because he couldn't get rid of it, and it's just so funny. So highly recommend that. Next up is Well Matched by Jen Toronto. This is the third in the Renaissance series. I forget what the official series name is, but it's centered around this small town Renaissance festival. And so this covers a single mom that's on the younger side. She had a teenage pregnancy and her daughter has just left the house. She's an empty nester, and the kind of quirky, fun PE teacher at her daughter's school. And so they've been involved in the Renaissance Festival and around each other. They have mutual friends that are all kind of part of the same group. And our heroine, as an empty nester, goes to the bar one day and is kind of feeling in a slump because she hasn't really dated or done anything for herself recently, and now she's an empty nester. And our hero comes up and says to her, hangs out, and they arrange a fake dating situation so that she can kind of get back on the horse, get out there, but also kind of get her community off her back. And he has his family that is kind of when are you going to get serious and settle down? And as they continue to interact with one another and hang out, it is a wonderful story. I actually don't know if her daughter's fully like out of the house, because at one point she's like, why is he here? So anyway, it's real fun. It's cute. The Renaissance Festival setting has been really interesting to read in all of the books. It's maybe not my favorite. I think the first book is still my favorite in the series, but it's a very fun, and this one is more of an interconnected standalone, so you could just jump in, even though it is book 3. So the next one is Parental Guidance by Avery Flynn. This is a hockey romance for hockey romance girlies. Our hero has had a couple of media snafus. And so he is looking to kind of clean up his act. His mom is like the manager or the owner or something like that. And so his mom is like involved in it, and it's hilarious. And so she kind of arranges for him to be set up with this girl. And I'm trying to think what her story is. She's like really into like building like miniatures and sets and kind of this like kind of dull chic kind of stuff. And she's looking for, I think, publicity or something, but it's really cute. I don't remember much about it. So, but it was really cute. They have she's kind of a cute little spitfire, a little short, and he's this big, burly, gruff hockey player and has kind of put his foot in his mouth a bunch of times. And so it's really fun. Again, sorry, I don't remember as much about that one. Then we have Kings of Kearny by Navessa Allen. This is a MC romance. Our heroine has just returned to town and is has been kind of caretaking her elderly grandmother, but has just transitioned her grandmother into this assisted living facility / nursing home. And our hero thinks that there's some stuff hinky going on at that place, and they'd like to kind of figure out what's going on. I can't remember if it's like they're trying to smuggle out the elderly's prescriptions for selling on the black market. They think something hinky is going on at the care facility. And so he approaches our heroine and is like, so does your grandma live there? Because like, I kind of need to get in there. And so they agree to a fake dating relationship so that he can have access to the nursing home and kind of investigate what's going on there. It is a pretty low stakes MC. You don't see much of the actual MC other than you know that he's a part of an MC, and that kind of the other MC is more of the like bad MC with the more traditional MC problems. And then the last one is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. Now, this is like the paragon of fake dating. And Christina Lauren is a really well-known author, so chances are most of you have read this, but it is a very good read if you haven't picked it up. This follows a maid of honor and a best man of a couple that were supposed to get married. And so it starts out with them at the wedding, and things go south at the wedding. A large percentage of the wedding party eats bad shellfish, and our heroine is allergic to shellfish, so she doesn't even do it. And our hero is like, yeah, I'm not gonna have buffet seafood, which, smart man, because basically everyone else gets food poisoning. And so the trip is non-refundable. Our heroine's sister they're twins. So our heroine's sister is kind of like a couponer type person, and she has a little bit of a social media presence. And so she wheels and deals to get all of these deals on her wedding. And so our heroine's like, I'm in this ugly like kelp green gown that doesn't look good on me because someone was like, oh, if you wear it, like if you pick it like X, Y, and Z. And so it's kind of like all of these things. And so the trip is non-refundable and there's not really anything to do about it. And so the the bride sends her sister on the honeymoon with the best man. And they don't really like each other. And they are sent on this vacation honeymoon together. And so they're staying in the honeymoon suite. And while there, she runs into the CEO of a company that she's interviewing for. And so now she has to pretend to her future boss that she's there with her fiance or her husband when they don't have any relationship. They were going to just like, it doesn't matter. We're in Hawaii. We're going to have a good time together. But no, then they get roped into doing stuff with her future boss. And so it ends up being this ethical quagmire. So it's really fun. Highly recommend. I believe she did a spinoff with the bride from the wedding that it's not a terrible spoiler, but it is kind of a spoiler. The bride and the groom end up splitting at the end of the book. And so then they end up, I think, circling back to write her story. I can't remember which book that is. But anyway, this was my 11-ish recommendations for fake dating relationships. So, in romance books. So, anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you stumbled on me from the collab, I appreciate you being here. I hope you choose to stick around. And if you are one of my subscribers and you haven't heard of some of these great other creators, feel free to check them out. They might also have some other great recommendations as well. Oh, my bangs are being difficult. So, anyway, thank you again so much to B from Mama Wants to Read Romance for organizing this collab. And I hope to see y'all sometime soon. Bye.